Good day, good evening, good day to you all, and welcome to you all, our viewers and listeners, to the Trans and Intersex History Archival Conversations. These take place every Friday at this time. And on this particular Friday, April 4th, 2025, we have yet another special episode. I was here at Trans and Intersex History Africa, call it TIHA. You can call us TIHA. It's dedicated to dedicated to documenting, archiving, preserving, basically, and keeping safe the histories of trans and intersex people in Africa and the diaspora. Our documented stories and materials are all kept safe on our website, and that is transintersexhistory.africa. I repeat, our website, if you want to see more of the history of Africa, trans and intersex people, please check out transintersexhistory.africa, and that is our website. My name is Victor Mukasa, and I am your host on these amazing conversations for TIHA. Today, our lenses are on Tanzania. Tanzania is what we bring to you. Tanzania is a very huge country in East Africa. For those of you who don't know, this is where it is situated. To the north, it is bordered by Uganda and Kenya. To the west, it is bordered by the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi. Into the south, we have Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. And then to the east, and this is very important, is the amazing Indian Ocean. So this is why it is referred to as the land of stunning coastlines. For those of you who have been to the coast of East Africa, it is stunning in Tanzania. It also has a lot of ancient traditions still, especially if you go to places like Zanzibar, and also the people there are very rich in culture and resilience. However, just like other African countries, beneath the surface of that beauty, beneath that surface, lies a more complicated truth, and especially for those whose existence challenges the colonial script of gender and sexuality. So, as our lenses focus on Tanzania, it is where our guest is coming from, and our guest today is Marvellous Moffat. Marvellous Moffat is a proud trans woman and human rights activist who has dared to live her truth in a society where doing so can come at a very high cost, as we will hear in her story. Marvellous' journey is one of transformation, not just of self, but also for community. From pushing through the harsh realities of growing up trans in Tanzania to boldly stepping into advocacy, Marvellous has become a powerful voice for trans visibility, safety, and dignity. In 2015, she founded a trans organization, House of Empowerment and Awareness in Tanzania, call it HIT. Marvellous is also an artist. Is a fashion designer. And so it is through both her talent and her activism that she pushes her mission, which mission is turning victims into victors, which ended up being the title of this episode. So welcome, Marvellous. Help me to welcome Marvellous Moffat to this episode of the Trans Archival Conversations, Turning Victims into Victors. Today, unlike every day, we won't be able to have Marvellous, our guest, in video for safety purposes, security and safety purposes, but we have her here. She'll be speaking to us. Marvellous Moffat, welcome to the Trans and Intersex History Africa Archival Conversations.
Hi, Victor Mukasa.
Hey, comrade.
A very warm, lovely good evening from Tanzania.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening to you.
Yes, here I am now. Let's go.
Well, welcome to the show, and thank you for accepting to come to share your story with people across the world who are interested or might benefit from the history that we share, that we archive, that we preserve. Now,
Okay.
fashion designer, it's so unfortunate that we're not able to see your fashion today, but we will imagine as we speak to you. And so today we are holding space for your story,
Mm,
Marvelous. And that is your struggles, your triumphs, your activism, your dreams, you know, basically your journey. And your journey
yeah.
already we see is a journey where there's a lot of talent, but also a lot of compassion for people and a desire for equality. So, to
Mm,
start with, what was it like growing up for you, Marvelous? And actually, take us down with you, take us down that lane or road with you. We would like to see the young Marvelous growing up. You see, when you look back to your earlier
mm,
years, what are some of those moments, like special moments, that shaped your sense of identity, yourself of self? You know, your
mm.
identity. What are some of those moments that shaped you? And yeah, you can also talk about messages that you had as you were growing up,
Yeah.
that you received about gender.
Okay.
Before all that, we would like to know how you got your name Marvelous, because you sound and look marvelous.
Okay. Thank you, Victor Mukasa, once again. So my name is Marvellous Moffat. I am a mix of northern and western part of Tanzania. I'm the last born in the family of four children.
Mhm.
And I come from a good background, I would say so. I'm very lucky to come from a background of both religions, of both Islamic and Christianity.
Wow.
Well, for me, yeah, that's very interesting, I know. So,
It is.
for me, growing up as who I am, it wasn't easy
Mm,
because, I was born in the 1980s where
right.
there's no even internet, nothing.
Right.
But growing up and getting that mind as a human being, that started in 90s, right? So it was
Yes.
not easy. It was not easy for me because by then they thought maybe it was just me being a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way I used to behave, the way I used to act, my room was full of dolls. I'll put on my sister's clothes, I'll play with my mother's hair. But then they took it as me being a child. My father was very strict, but thank God I was lucky because my father was never at home most of the times.
Oh.
So I was with my mom, who was a bit softer.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember growing up when I was in primary, all my friends were girls, you
Mm-hmm.
know. All my friends were girls, and
Mm-hmm.
it was an issue. They even had a special letter written to my mother telling. By the way, before that, with me, when I was growing up, before puberty, actually, I really looked like a girl. They even asked my mother, "Are you sure this is a boy?" Or it's a girl dressed in a boy's uniform, because we're not sure what we're saying. We're getting
Yeah.
confused. And
So
my
when
mother was
your
like, a girl.
parents took you to school, they questioned your gender, like they were not convinced
Yes,
that you
the
were.
school was really questioning, like they were confused because I
Mm-hmm.
totally looked like a girl, who I am, you understand? But
Exactly.
then they were like, yes, they were like telling my mother these kinds of questions, like, please tell us the truth, what is going on? And my mother was like, I've given birth to a boy, what is the problem? So it was an issue for her, you understand? But by then,
Right.
she never knew how to deal with the situation, you
Right.
understand? But
Right.
then, so, we are who we are. That's the truth. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Right.
being myself since that age.
Mm.
So most of my friends were girls, And I remember at a very young age, I really had harsh brothers. My second brother was very strict and very
Mm-hmm.
harsh towards me. He would be like,
Mm-hmm.
behave like a boy, you have to play football, remove those dolls from your room. So most of the times I really did not enjoy my childhood. I'll be in the room locking myself, because if I go out, then I'm forced to play football, something that is not in me. That's something that
You
I
didn't
don't
want to
like.
do that, right?
I can't even kick a stone. Would I even kick a ball, really? You understand? So
Right.
it was difficult. Yeah, it was difficult. But
Mm-hmm.
then for them
Mm-hmm.
also, I understand they were coming from a point where they never experienced such a thing before. So they never knew how to navigate around the issue of having me in the family as a family
Mm-hmm.
member. So
Mm-hmm.
time went by, and finally I went to secondary education. Now this is where it's very interesting. You understand, when you're getting into secondary education, it's all about
Yeah,
puberty,
you're in
understanding
puberty, heading for
yourself.
adolescence. Yes.
Exactly, you understand.
Yes.
So I was really questioning myself. I remember I would wake up every morning, go to the mirror and ask myself, why are they telling me I'm not a girl? I feel different inside. Why are they telling me this? Why are they forcing me to do this? It really made me unhappy, but I could not show it. I could not tell anyone. Then for my mother, in that time, she was trying to understand who I was. She was also
Mm-hmm.
in a confused situation. She was really trying to understand who I was. So you
Right.
could understand she was giving more attention. She gave me attention, yes, I would say so, because my other three siblings were
Mm-hmm.
studying out of the country, and I was the only one who
Mm-hmm.
was in Tanzania. And so most of the times I spent with my mother. But then she was also in a situation where she was trying to understand me. She was hearing stories from neighbors that your child will be a homosexual. That is the word they used. And let me tell you, in Swahili, it sounds
Right.
very bad. It sounds very bad.
What's the word for
Like, so
that
they
in Swahili?
sugar, like your
Shoga.
child is a sugar. Yes, Mwanao is sugar and stuff. So it was very painful for her, but she could not tell me at that time.
Right.
But she would
Mm-hmm.
call me on private times and ask me, are you okay? If there's any issue, let me know. If there's
Mm-hmm.
any problem, let me know. But for her, she used to tell me, my son, you will end up growing being a humanizer because you like women so much.
The reports from school said you were hanging out with all the girls.
Yes. So for her, she was like, hey, my son will end up becoming a womanizer. My
That's
dear,
the
it
first.
was a terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, terrible
Childhood.
situation for
Yeah.
me.
And
Being in
so
secondary school,
in
you
secondary
understand?
school, did you already have a word to identify with for or your identity, or
Not
you
yet.
just knew
Okay, not
you
yet.
are
I was hearing the word gay,
from
but I never knew
yeah,
what it really meant. You
right,
understand?
right,
Because we grew up in that era where there was no internet, there was no information. You could
yes,
not even get a friend who is like you to tell you, I'm also going through the same journey like you. You understand? So
hmm.
I was I had no information at all who I was. You
I would like to
understand?
capture
So
certain things in this journey of yours. I'm sorry
yeah.
when I come in. From the point you were young up to this point where we are right now in the story,
Mm.
had you met anybody else? Did you ever see anybody else that you thought they are like me? I am like them.
So in secondary school, I
Hmm.
actually met my friend who became my best friend till to date. She's also a trans woman. Yes. And getting to see each other, giving that eye contact, as they always say, birds of the same feathers flock together. So we knew who we
Exactly,
were,
flock together. Hmm.
and we automatically connected. But it was not easy for us because we were attacked left, right, and center,
Right.
from the staff,
Oh.
the teachers, the students themselves and stuff. So it was not easy. One of my worst experiences when I was in secondary school,
Hmm.
when I was in Form 2 here in Tanzania, we call it Form 2. I know you're
Hmm.
gonna call it S2, something like that. So
Still, for our
S2,
listeners in the West, that is about still the seventh grade.
is it?
No, seven, eight, nine, ninth grade.
Yes, ninth grade, actually, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yes, yes.
So I wrote a love letter to a certain boy,
Mm-hmm.
and when I wrote that letter to that boy exposed the letter to other boys. And the discipline teacher at that time was way transphobic,
Right.
extremely transphobic. So I was really scared of him. So what this boy did, he exposed the letter to the other boys, and they were always threatening me to take the letter to the discipline master. So what
Mm-hmm.
they did, they told me I have to sleep each and every boy who had that letter. So it was like a relay marathon. Today I have to sleep with this
Oh,
boy. Today I have to sleep with another boy for 4 good years until I finished my secondary
oh
education.
no.
It was not easy. I did not perform well. Every time I go back home, I feel like I want to tell my mother something, but I can't because I have attacks left, right, and center. From family, from the community, from the school itself. So it was a terrible situation. So every day when I go to school, for me it was misery, because you go to school, someone comes and shows you the letter and tells you, "Come, follow me to the bathroom." Victor, for me, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. I'm trying to be okay, but then it was not easy. It wasn't
I'm
easy.
sorry, honey, that you had to go through
You
that.
understand?
That's
On top of that, teachers also had issues with me. I remember our biology teacher used to say, HIV has started from people like Marvellous. These are the cause of HIV. Now you can imagine, with that generation, what are you trying to infuse in their minds? You understand? So I was hated. But I had to go to school. I had no option. But there were also some other cases where my mother was called at school. They were telling her, "Oh, your child is like this. Your child behaves like a girl. We don't understand. It is all about this." But for her, when we come back, she tries to negotiate a conversation. But still, for her also, it wasn't easy because she did not understand. It was her first experience, you know. So it was a
okay.
terrible moment.
And
You
so sorry,
understand?
so you never mentioned this to anyone. Also in Tanzania, where was there any kind of organizing for, even if it was just gay people or queer people at
At
the
that
time?
time, not at all. Trust me.
Right, right.
At that time, I was in my own ocean. Whether to sink,
Mhm.
to swim, or to what, it was upon me.
So when did you then begin to identify as a trans woman, and what were the hardest parts of embracing that identity
So
in a
yeah,
society
so
where you are not permitted to live?
okay. When I finished my secondary education, I went to advanced level. Advanced level, okay, it was more or less the same issues as we always face in school, right?
Right.
A lot of bullying, a lot of attacks. You get a group of those bad boys who tell you, "Bring your valuable things and stuff." Yeah, it was not easy. But then, after completing my secondary education completely, that's when I knew that I was different. But then, I knew I was gay by that time, not knowing that I was trans. And this notion still applies until now in Tanzania, whereby when they see a trans woman, then they see you as a real gay. When they see a trans man, they consider them as real lesbians. They have
Correct.
no understanding of transgender people at all, or gender
Yes.
non-binary people at all.
Mm,
You
mm.
understand? So when I
The
finished,
story, the story.
yeah. So when I finished my secondary education, that's when I knew I was different. But then I would do
Yes.
in hiding. I would go
Mm-hmm.
out, but hiding, do makeup and what, so no one sees me. Eventually,
Yes.
when now my family came to find out, because one day I was outed in some gossip newspapers. Who saw me when I was out having fun? Then they captured my pictures, they put my story, and now it was known all over Tanzania. It was confirmed. Yes, now it was fully confirmed.
Which
I
year
was
was
outed.
this when you first appeared in the tabloids?
Um, if I can remember, it was around 2007, 2008 there.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now my journey began. So having to be outed in the newspaper. Now
Mm-hmm.
I ran away from home and I was living in the streets. I was living at my friend's place. I would sleep in street pavements. It was hectic, and I had to survive as a sex worker by then because there was no
Right.
any other option.
Right.
You go to a person, you ask for food, they look at the way you are, they tell you, if you want food, give me something in return. And
Yeah.
because I had no option, I had to survive as a human being. I did it. That's how I got itself into the industry, you know. So
You had to find a means of survival. You had to find a way, which
exactly,
unfortunately
and this
is
applies to
rough at
most
most of our
transgender
siblings.
women. Yeah, and this applies to most transgender women in Africa, to
Yeah.
the global level, of course. Um, so after that, I was lucky to go to a certain college in Nairobi, and I did my
Yes.
degree in fashion designing and garment construction. Because
Uh,
yeah, actually, I went back home. I had a conversation with my mom, and she was like, "Let me do something for you. You understand, my child?" Believing that I will change. That's her
yes.
belief.
Hmm.
And my mother is a staunch Christian. Until today, she still believes that one day Marvelous is going to marry a woman and have kids and bring that, you know dignity to the family. I'm sorry for laughing, but that's the truth.
I wish, yeah, and I also wish her, luck. That
Yeah, so I went and I did my fashion degree. After completing my fashion degree, when I came back to Tanzania, I was employed to a certain organization that was working on HIV issues, focusing on MSM and gay men. You
Oh,
know,
yes.
yes, focusing on MSM and gay men, and I was
Hmm.
working with a certain department. But then I was working with a department of sex workers because that is what I was good at from that start.
I have seen that you have actually done a lot of work and advocacy for sex workers, not just these queer people, but you have done it for sex workers and other
Yes,
marginalized groups.
yes. Mukasa, I'm a human rights activist.
Yes,
To
you are.
me, any woman with any issue is my issue.
Hmm.
Whether you're a person living with disability, whether
Right.
you're a woman, whether you're a refugee, whether you're what, for me, it is my issue.
Yes,
You understand? That's how I define being a human rights activist.
correct.
So by then, so when working with that organization, me
Hmm.
being referred to a gay person, it was like, this is not for me. No, this is not me.
Yeah,
Having to
yeah.
call me the
So you went to
male
them as a
pronoun.
trans woman, but they were referring you to a gay person to speak to.
Exactly. And when you go to work, when I used to go to work, from the bus stop to work was a bit distant. It was like some few, like 500 meters. So I
Hmm.
used to walk to and from the bus stop. And the directors, the top bosses, they would tell me, you have to walk straight. Please be like a man, dress like a man. And I'm like, no, why? This is me. This is automatic. It is in my blood.
Yeah.
I can't remove
Oh,
it. So when I saw all those issues and politics and everything, I said, we need to have a specific platform that will address our own specific issues.
I see.
And that's how we initiated an organization that was to amplify voices, to narrate issues that we're facing as transgender women, diverse transgender women who by that time were in Dar es Salaam. And we were lucky to get support from some donors outside Tanzania, of course. And since then, we moved on and we became working at a national level. Until now, we came working at a regional level and getting known to the global level to so
And that
many
is
affiliations.
the organization you speak of is HIT.
Yes,
Okay,
hit.
just a little bit there, Marvelous. For those of you who are just joining us, this is Marvelous Moffat. Moffat is from Tanzania, where our lenses are today. She's telling her journey in Tanzania as a trans woman, an activist, a human rights defender, and we're looking at how she gets to realizing her identity to all the organizing that she's doing today and contributions to the African trans struggles and movement in general. My name is Victor Mukasa, and you are with Trans and Intersex History Africa. Uh, website. These are our archival conversations. So I just wanted to ask, dear Marvelous, 2015 is when your organization is established. Now,
Correct.
in the region before, in the early 2000s, when
Mm,
the movement in East Africa basically was beginning to grow, that is LGBTIQ movement, with the
yeah.
T and I just decorations there in the acronym. We
Yeah.
had organizations that we were working with in Tanzania, organizations
Mm,
Talesa, the lesbian
mm,
association of Tanzania Lesbian Association, something like that. There was
mm.
also another gay men's organization, and up to the time that you founded Heat, uh, there was no work around transgender, specific work targeting transgender or intersex people in Tanzania up to the time up till the time you founded Heat. Or
Yes,
was there
correct.
something happening somewhere but non satisfactory?
Well, it's a bit complicated because,
Yeah,
we had issues. We had the trans men, of course, and us, the trans women. But then we still had issues. We were just trying to fight for a space, our own spaces. For example, you go to a workshop and they put your pronouns he, him,
yeah,
and you
yes,
feel so bad, like, is this really my space? But what would you do? So we were forced to be under that umbrella until we were able to have our own organizations. Luckily, we had HIT, which has for trans women, but we also had an organization that was also working with trans masculine people identities.
does it still
So,
exist?
no, it does. Yes, it does exist.
And
It's
you won't
called
mention
TIHA.
it? Are you comfortable talking about it, like just mentioning it?
No, I'm not
Okay,
in the space.
yes,
Sorry. But
that's
it
fine.
still
That's
does
okay.
exist. Yeah, it still does exist, and we were happy to get
Yeah.
into contact and meet. And from there, we shared ideas. We cried, we
Hmm.
laughed.
Hmm.
We started the journey together. The journey wasn't easy. Mukasa,
Hmm.
you can testify to this. How spaces
Yes,
were toward trans people in Africa. It
I,
was not easy.
I know, I know. And for those who don't know much about queer rights in Africa, in particular East Africa, they'll hear me ask you a question: are you comfortable mentioning this organization? It's not because she doesn't want to promote other organizations. These are
Mm,
serious safety and security issues. The,
correct.
the state of human rights for LGBTIQ people in Africa is really, really dangerous in some places, and Tanzania is one of them. In fact, Marvelous, if you're okay with this, we have heard of recent challenges, increased levels of violations against the queer community in Tanzania. Do you want to very briefly tell us about the general, because whatever laws are brought against gay people, they are affecting trans people definitely, most likely
Yeah.
even more than they will affect most of the gay people, in terms of directness. What is the situation like legally in Tanzania? Just very briefly, just to give us just an idea of what it's like for our listeners who have no idea what you go
Okay,
through.
so basically, I will start by defining how the context is. East African context, a man has more value than a woman. So being a man who presents, behaves, or identifies as a woman is something very unacceptable within the society.
Right.
It's very odd.
Hmm.
You're considered as the black sheep, something weird. You
Hmm.
know, so in Tanzanian case, these laws were actually they're colonial laws, we all know.
Right.
Yeah, they're all colonial laws.
Hmm.
And as days went by, things have been escalating. I mean, I would say tremendously. you
Mm-hmm.
know, because,
Mm.
yeah, because now what we don't understand, the laws have been there. People who have been there existing, they've been seeing us,
Yeah.
they've been seeing us. We have been there, but then, with me, I like talking issues on the ground. But
Mm.
basically, let me touch on what you asked. So the legal context does not, it criminalizes
Yes.
same-sex acts. And
Mm-hmm.
this mainly affects trans people because of our visibility, because of our identity. As I
Mm-hmm.
said before, trans woman is the one who is seen as a real gay.
Yes.
A transgender man is the one who is considered to be a real lesbian.
Yeah. Trans people are basically the face.
We are the face. Now you
Mhm.
can imagine what we face in the society, from the government level to the government to the community level, to
Mhm.
even within the LGBTQ family itself. It is a problem for us. When
Mhm.
they say, for example, there's a time there was a crackdown on LGBTQ people, and they were
Yes.
asking for names. The top
Yes.
names were for transgender people, and mostly
Yes.
transgender women. We were the top. Hey, I'm laughing sarcastically, but
I
that was the
understand.
case.
And
You
this
understand?
crackdown was recent.
No, it was in 2017. It was very bad. Some of
Okay.
us have to flee to other countries. People went in hiding. People were outed. It became chaotic. We even
It
made
was in
global headlines.
Tanzania that lawyers from other African countries were arrested. Uh, I think around that time at a conference.
Yes,
The queer
with the
lawyers from
claim
South
that,
Africa and
yes,
Uganda.
with the allegations that they were promoting
They're
homosexuality.
promoting homosexuality. Yes, I
And it
remember that.
was really and they were banned to come to Tanzania forever.
Wow.
Yeah, it was I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say, but this country, only God knows how we survive. But at the same time, let me say something. It is a very hypocritical context for this, I would say, because
Mhm.
people would, we, as we always say, for us trans women and trans women sex workers, we are rejected during the day but desired by the night. The same people who would put these laws are the same people who come at night and say, oh, marvelous, that is work, I have to do it because of formality, but this is how I feel, help me out. It is a different experience. You're a different woman, you're a different kind of human being. And I'm like, what is wrong with people? You understand? So there's a
Yeah,
lot of hypocrisy going on around. You
that's right.
understand?
So
For
it is
example,
indeed
if for
very.
example,
Yep.
yes,
Go
for
on, please.
example, when you touch on the issue of HIV, the
Mhm.
prevalence of HIV among trans women is very high. Where do they get HIV from? Who do we have affairs with? Who do we have sexual intercourse with? You understand? And for
Yes.
me, as I usually say, when I go to sensitizing people and doing my advocacy work, I usually tell them, I don't believe there's LGBTQ, HIV, and heterosexual HIV. There's nothing like that.
Yeah,
HIV
like
is
they're kind
everyone.
of different.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because then, we have had cases where, like, trans women, when they go to access HIV services in clinics,
Yeah.
HIV clinics,
Yeah.
the healthcare worker removes the Bible and starts preaching. If you are not like this, you wouldn't have been positive. You can change and God will heal you. For God's sake. For God's sake, you would have done that at a national level from the Ministry of Health. It would have made sense for me. But when you tell it to me as marvelous, for me, it doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
because I'll still go outside there. The
Mhm.
same men who are your husbands and brothers and fathers are the same people who will come and purchase services.
Those
And
who
the
have
reality,
those who might
yes,
get
and
that.
that is because majority of trans women sex workers, they
Yes.
survive on sex work. They do survival sex work. So if they get good money, they never compromise for condom use. That is the
Right.
reality.
Right. But that
You
means
understand?
that there are challenges that come with all this, on top of the transphobia that exists in our communities and in Tanzania in particular. Uh, HEED, as an organization founded in 2015, what kind of organizing and programming for transgender people have you done? Do you have any initiatives that you'd like to share with us that actually target those specific issues within your community?
Thank you very much, Mukasa. I'm
Mhm,
very delighted that I had started this organization. I have
mhm.
saved lives. I have uplifted lives. You know, I even feel like crying right now. Where I come from, the people I've worked with, the issues I've intervened, you know,
Yes,
it has changed people's lives. It was initiated to change people's lives. And
yes,
basically, economically, you know, economic was one of the major issue. Eh?
yes.
Then with the issue around HIV, you know,
Mhm.
there was issue around illiteracy, you know. But most and foremost is when I completed my fashion degree, I said, let me use this what I have to change lives of people. So I introduced different skills like sewing skills. I think most of the activists would testify this. They've seen me on spaces
Thank
selling
you.
my product or products that people have made from our
Thank you. I've
organization.
also seen a lot of your Bitenge and designs on the internet. I was really so proud of a sister doing amazing
Yes,
work in
you
Tanzania.
understand. So for
Yeah,
me, humanity is what counts. As long
yes,
as I see a trans woman who wakes up being happy, eats good food, living healthy, that is all what matters.
yeah,
We never
yeah.
know what is tomorrow. But one thing I usually say, and I would always say until I leave this world, is to leave a legacy.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes,
we are trying to leave a legacy for the upcoming generation. That
yes.
there was Marvel, there was Mukasa, there was
Well,
Liane
I
Van
remember
Temel.
speaking to you yesterday. You said
Yeah.
something that made me laugh so hard. You said, for me, I'm already finished. I'm already
Yeah,
finished.
yes.
I'm
For our
focusing on the
generation,
little
it is
ones. Say more
yes,
about that.
for our generation, it is a gone case. It is a gone. But yes, but then, what are we leaving behind, Mukasa?
Right, right, right.
Thank God, we are saying these days of globalization. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because these days in technology, there's internet and what things people can access everything and stuff. You know, what are we leaving for them behind to understand? It's
For the
not all
moment.
about me. Yes, as I usually say, it's not all about posing, putting on good makeup, good hair. No, you
Mhm.
understand. But what are
Yes.
you leaving behind? Because tomorrow you'll have your young sister. Do you know if she'll be a trans woman or a trans? I mean, do you know if she'll become a trans person? You
Mm-hmm.
know what it means. You'll have
Mm-hmm.
a relative. Do you know if the person will become a trans person? Do you want the same person to go through what you went through? No, not at all. So we have to pave way strategically for the upcoming generation. We have to leave messages that there was this, but please, it is a relay marathon. Get on, go ahead.
That's really very powerful. It caught me yesterday. It has caught me today. Let's not so focus on ourselves. It's okay for us too, but what are we
Yeah,
leaving behind? And I think
yeah.
that is a question to all of us who have gone through it. Do we want those coming after us to go through the
Mm,
same? And I think that is a very, very powerful. I'm sure it has been captured for the website too. Those are very powerful words. Yeah, and
mm,
so hit still in talking about what you are living, what you're doing for the community back at home. How has health of trans people, targeting trans people, been addressed by HIT or any initiatives in Tanzania, or do we have any initiatives like that that just address the health of trans people, targeting health?
So, okay. Now this is it. In Tanzania, we don't have trans health specific issues
Mm-hmm.
because, as I said, they lack understanding and information on trans people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised few years back, not more than 3 years back.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, our government, I would applaud them. When it comes to HIV issues, they have really tried. For that, I congratulate. These days, you can walk in as a trans woman and you'll
Right.
get services, fast track
Mhm.
services in HIV clinics, friendly services.
Mhm.
They will record you so nicely, give you treatment, and do everything. For that, I would applaud them. It is in all the other
What do
sectors
you
where
attribute to that, Moffat? What do you attribute to that? What has changed? Because before, your neighbor did not want to look at you. You at school, you were questioned a lot, and yet today you can actually, even if there is all these challenges, you can walk into some clinics and get and be received as a trans woman.
so I would say much work has been done seriously.
Right. Right.
Yes, much work has been done. We have
Mhm.
sacrificed ourselves. We never knew
Yes.
what has happened. People have lost lives. People have been wounded. People
Yes.
have permanent wounds because of today's people walking to, for example, as I said, walking to friendly health clinics and getting
Yeah.
services without any stigma and discrimination. You understand?
You
But
have all
one
worked
thing,
for this.
yes, one thing I would say, the struggle is real and the struggle does continue.
Right.
It never
That's right.
ends. And this is not only for LGBTQ folks, it is for everyone out there. Even with
Yes.
people living with disability, they're still
Mhm.
fighting for their
Yes.
rights. They're still
Hmm.
fighting for their issues. We have, for example, the killing of albinos that was in Tanzania, that
I almost
started in
mentioned
Tanzania.
that. Yes.
You understand? They are
Yeah.
also human like us. Why would
Yeah.
you do that
Yeah.
to them? What is wrong with them? You understand?
Hmm.
So, as
But
I
you can
usually
see
say,
very slow progress, but there is some
there is
progress.
progress. There's progress. Each one of every. eh, There's one famous quote that I usually like, Victor,
Hmm.
that says, "When you walk alone, you reach far, but
Hmm.
when we walk together, we reach further." I
That's
love
right.
that quote so much. It really makes
Yes.
me go. It really makes me going because the truth of the matter is, let me add another quote. I love quotes a lot. Sorry, I'm an artist, so I use a
That's
lot of
fine.
quotes and
That's okay.
words and stuff. So
We're
there's
holding
another quote
space
which
for
is,
your story
yes.
today.
So I'm adding another quote to this first quote, which says, "Make sure the person you love the person you hate doesn't appear to be the person you love." You know what it really means? It's a very powerful quote. So basically, what it means, if you, for example, today you are my neighbor, you hate
Mhm.
me as Marvellous. She's a black sheep. Leave her alone. She needs to get out of this society or whatever. What
Mhm.
happens if your related brother is my boyfriend? You understand? If one day
Yes.
we are out there enjoying ourselves as a couple, won't he also be attacked because of being with me?
Exactly.
So you have to be very careful before pointing one finger at the other foes looking at you.
It makes sense.
You understand?
Yes.
Another good example, if I'm a HIV positive and you don't want to listen to my issue, but I'm the same person who gives services to your men, to your
Hmm.
boyfriends, to your fathers, to your husbands, but you
Hmm.
said, that shouldn't be a priority in the society. If they get HIV and they bring it to you, now you're getting the sense of my court, Mukasa.
I get it. Indeed.
Yes, you understand. So as I
Yes.
usually say, think before you act. Think
Yes.
before you act. By the way, me, I'm one of these people, when I get into spaces, I don't
Mhm.
like these intellectual issues.
Yeah.
You hear these words people talk about, I don't know, global fund, and that is not for me.
It,
For
yeah.
me, it's waking up, going outside the gate there, getting a matatu. No one, shouts at me. I get into a matatu. By the way, I do fashion designing, and I have employed people who are from the heterosexual community. In quotes, if that is true, I don't know. That is their business. But I'm paying taxes to the government, which because I don't love, but I'm paying taxes,
Yes.
which is helping the government developing,
Yes.
you understand?
You're
I'm
contributing
helping life.
to your
I'm
economy
contributing
and to your
to the
community.
economy.
Yeah.
You understand? So
Yes.
I usually tell people, Think before you act. I remember one time I was in a space and
Mhm.
this man comes up and he was like, we have no rain because of you people. The economy is deteriorating of you because of you people. I told him, thank you very much. Are you done speaking? Can I also speak? He said, okay, you can speak. I told him, I'm sorry, I'll be using these harsh words. But does rain form from my ass, from my behind? I'm sorry, Bukasa, but I,
Be yourself.
I,
It's fine. You're using
so I asked
art.
him that, yes, you are saying rain. Yes, there was no rain, there's drought because of people like me. Does those rain, the clouds, the heavy gray clouds you see, come from my behind that I
Mhm.
stop them not to come out? Stop speaking nonsense. You talk of environmental pollution out there that destroys the environment.
Mhm.
Now I ask you, when you go and throw litter outside there and you come attack me, does it make sense to you? Please sit down and you think. And he felt
Mhm.
so embarrassed.
Definitely.
So
That hopefully
embarrassed, but
the result of all
because
that.
if you talk, for example, if you talk about global warming issues
Yeah.
because of environmental pollution. Why do environmental activists, specialists, professionals meet and talk about how to change issues around our countries, how to preserve our environment, how to stop pollution, how to do this? Why wouldn't they call me as Marvelous and Mukasa sit there? Please let us know, why is there drought? Why is there global warming? Tell us, because you are the reason. You must use common sense before you talk.
Exactly. Exactly. See that time is against us, but I still have a few more points that I want us to engage with on that very point of access to health care for trans people. I want to ask specifically. Uh, a long time ago, I traveled to Tanzania for work on behalf of Outright International. And I remember that the day I arrived, it was difficult to find some of the activists because they had gone and were dealing with the press somewhere in some village somewhere where the body, the remains of a trans woman had been returned from abroad. This woman had received gender affirming care abroad. And so she
Mm.
came. She had long hair and she was looking so beautiful and elegant, even if it was just her remains. But the villager, right from the mortuary, they put her on shore for journalists to take pictures. It was a wonder in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. And then also back at home, they cut off her breasts and her hair because they claimed they had a, a male child and not this female
Mm.
body that they had received. It was so chilling, that experience, even reading the newspapers. It was in the newspapers of this woman. And how I remember is because of the question that I'm about to ask, but also it shows us how how, how, how chilling some
Mm.
experiences are. We are not only treated badly in life, but even in death. So this woman
Yeah.
had to find this care outside,
Mm.
outside of
Mm.
Tanzania. Today, we see trans women in Tanzania. Is there access to gender affirming care in Tanzania, whether back door or, are people able to? Is there, first of all, education around it? Is there sensitization around it? Is there access? Are there places that trans people can actually go to and receive some kind of gender affirming care, that they don't have to go
Um,
abroad like the woman that I just spoke about?
Not at all. As a country, I think we're still in a crawling stage. As I told you before,
Yeah.
they still lack that understanding. They have no information of who trans people are. When I walk on the street, as people start pointing fingers, they call me as the real homosexual.
Yes.
Because of the way I look and stuff. So they still, but
Yes.
these days with technology, I'm
Mhm.
surprised that there are some people in their own time, in their
Mhm.
own ways. they find this information, and you'll be surprised in other platforms they'll talk about even trans people, and I'll be like, where do you get this information? Because us as the real people, the real victims of all this, we have not given you the information, but where do you get this information? And people are informed, but then because of how the context is, it is
Mhm.
not easy to go beyond out of the line and talk about these things, you know. And don't forget that Tanzania it still believes in communalism. Everything still belongs to a community,
Mhm.
So the community has power. If your community says no, then it is no, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. You can't compare with other countries where there will be conflicts, there will be debate and stuff, there will be issues and stuff. But we come from a very communal kind of society,
Mm.
whereby if it is a no, it is a no for everyone.
That's right. That's right.
So actually, you have really triggered something. Not even that trans woman who came from abroad, but there were several cases where trans women died, and it
Tell
became
us
an
some
issue.
of
I
those
remember.
experiences, please.
Yes, there was a trans woman who was admitted at a national hospital, one of the national
Mhm.
hospitals, yes, here in Dar es Salaam.
Mhm.
And when they saw that she was a trans woman and she was HIV positive and she had HIV complications, AIDS complications, so when they
Mhm.
found out that she was a trans woman, they never attended to her. What they did, they called the media in.
Mm.
They started taking videos and pictures of her. They were like,
Mm.
we can't treat her because it's against our culture, it's against our religion. Look at her, what an embarrassment. For God's sake, even spitting saliva. She ended up passing away.
They
There was
didn't
another
give her any treatment.
non treatment, and it was all over
Instead, they
newspapers.
called the media to show her to the whole of Tanzania.
Correct. There was another trans woman who was raped. I think she went with someone, and when that person found out she was a trans woman, they entered bottles behind her in her rectum until she died. When she went to the with her dead body, I'm
When she
sorry, I'm
went to the
getting emotional,
hospital,
but
you said,
when they took her dead body to the hospital, they took her corpse to
yes.
the hospital, they found that she was a trans woman. They did not do anything to her. They didn't do, like, they called in the media. I remember they took pictures of her. We saw it in the newspaper, and they even stopped some of us who wanted to go at least to work on that dead body. And by the way, Victor, if I die, for example, as a trans woman, especially in a certain type of religion, an Islamic religion, if I die as a trans woman, fellow trans women can never come and bury me.
That's right.
They can never, unless they change and dress like men and not people noticing them. That's the only they can come and bury me. But they can't. It is painful. We have lost trans women, a lot of trans women. We just end up hearing they've been buried, and that's it. And that's like, it's painful, darling. It
You
is.
say, uh, Marvelous, we have to end this show, but I want to tell you that this is very deep, what you're sharing. And it also evokes a lot from my side, and I'm sure for the viewers, like it has done for you.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I know that, for example, we have Transgender Day of Remembrance every November, and we are always, a part of it. Most of us, probably even you yourself,
Mm.
and we name our people whom we have lost. And I'm so glad that this platform and these archival conversations bring us to a point where we can still name people, that we can have some people who we have lost in Tanzania named this year, and for us to pray for them and honor them, and remind ourselves about what we have to go through in order to survive. And I imagine that is the toughest thing that you can go through, even you can relieve, because as you tell this story, I'm sure it is more of relieving a lot of those abuses and violations yourself. And I want to send you strength, my dear, and to tell you that you have family across the world. And for any other trans person out there that is listening to Marvelous today, you have family across the world. And yeah, that was a very touching thing. But we will end on that wisdom. You, Marvelous, who is you're clearly a woman of quotes, and your quotes are very, very, very powerful. I would like to ask you a question. What what dreams do you hold for young trans people in Tanzania and for the continent? And what message do you leave those people and all of us as we close? I think that we have lost Marvelous. Have we lost Marvelous Studio? Have we lost Marvelous? It looks like we have lost her. And for that matter, we will be closing at this point. We will make sure to bring more of history stories from Tanzania at some point. As you have noticed, they just come in bits, and a lot of it is not easy to talk about because for security reasons. Please also go to the website Trans and Intersex History Africa website, and you will find more information than a lot of people have shared on videos here. And our website will be shared with you again by the team in the studio. Go and find out more about different countries, the stories from different countries. Would like to say thank you to all of you who just showed up. Thank you to all of those who have commented on the video and encouraged Marvelous. That was a very, very difficult conversation. It makes her and all of us relive a lot of trauma-filled experiences that we've gone through. But we would like to thank you. Thank you so much, Marvelous, to our viewers and to all our supporters. We thank the donors, the Other Foundation and Australia Foundation, who actually support this work. We would also like to send a special shout out to Gender Dynamics, who are our partner in this work at different levels. Thank you, lastly but not the least, to the team at TIHA, Trans and Intersex History Africa website. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next Friday with yet another very interesting conversation from somewhere in Africa. Au revoir. Bye bye.